Live from the Business RadioX studio inside Renaissance Bank, the bank that specializes in understanding you. It's time for North Fulton Business Radio.
And hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of North Fulton Business Radio. I'm John Ray, and folks, we are live broadcasting from inside Renaissance Bank in Alpharetta, right on Windward Parkway. Folks, if you are tired of, you know what I mean when I say this, the big bank experience. Yes, the computer-generated voices, they really don't want to talk to you. You know what I mean. I don't have to go through the list. If you're getting tattooed in that way and you would like a better solution to your banking needs for your business, go to renaissancebank.com, find their local office, and give them a call, and you'll get a live person, or if they're busy with another client, they'll actually call you back. Imagine that. They will call you back, a real person, and make an appointment with you, and you can come in and chat with them about what your needs are. I think you'll find that Renaissance is big enough to handle pretty much any need you have, but small enough to do it in a personal way. I know that myself personally, which is why we are sitting here inside Renaissance Bank. So give them a call. Go check them out. Renaissance Bank, understanding you, member FDIC. And now I want to welcome Daniel Noto. Daniel is with Noto Consulting Group. Daniel, welcome.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
Something tells me you own Noto Consulting Group.
Yeah, the name kind of gives it away.
Yeah, it kind of gives it away. Well, let's talk about how you're serving folks through Noto Consulting Group.
Sure. And again, so thank you very much for having me today.
Absolutely.
So yeah, Noto Consulting Group, in the bigger scheme of things, it's mechanical system consulting, and the layman's term for mechanical system is your HVAC. You know, your air conditioning, your heating, ventilation, air conditioning. I spent about 20 years on the design side, creating drawings, working with architects, working with contractors. And over the last few years, I started finding myself spending more time worrying about the spelling and the font size on the drawings than the engineering going into them. I started getting a bit too far from why I got into engineering, to begin with, why I went to Georgia Tech, why I wanted to be an engineer when I was a kid in high school. It was to solve problems. And I was finding myself that I wasn't really solving many problems other than, hey guys, you misspelled this word, right? And that's not, that wasn't scratching the itch for me. And what I found was that, I wanted to get back to that. And what we do, we offer three main services as Noto Consulting Group. There's expert witness consulting, peer review, and third-party review. So that's just, that's kind of what people refer to as the second set of eyes. And the last thing is the mechanical building system consulting. And that's the problem solving. That's, hey, everyone will know if it's too hot, it's too cold, it's too humid, it's too dry, it's too loud. But not everybody knows what's wrong. And to give you an idea of where I feel I can fit in, and I've talked to a lot of people and they've said, it seems like you're filling a need. And that's kind of what I'm going after here is I'm not taking the spot of, the repairmen and the technicians, right? If something's wrong with your air conditioner, you need to call them. I have, the guys come to my house twice a year to check, change the filters and check the compressor and fix everything that's not working right.
Sure.
And at the same time, I don't want to take the role of the contractor either, right? I'm not going to get up into the ceiling and install ductwork.
Right.
But between those two is the system might be running right, the system might be installed right, and you still might not be happy with what you have. And that's where I can come in and say, you're right. You have a working system, but it's not the right system for your house, or it's not the right system for your office, or it's not the right system for whatever purpose you're using it for.
Got it. Wow. Let's talk about your journey. I mean, like before you started your business, what were you doing?
Yeah.
And I mean, you left Georgia Tech, you graduated from Georgia Tech and had a career journey there, and talk a little bit about that. And you've got an interesting story about what motivated you to start Noto Consulting. that we were talking about before we came on the air. So tell that if you would.
Sure. So I'll give a little background on myself, like you said. So, as you can probably tell, I don't have the local accent, if you will. So I've got that covered. So don't worry about that. I was right, but I was born in New York, but really grew up in South Florida. But did go to Georgia Tech. So it's kind of a homecoming, if you will. Yep. And but right after graduating from Georgia Tech with a mechanical engineering degree, I got my first job in New York and started doing mechanical engineering for a pretty large engineering firm there. And after about 3 years of living in New York, my now wife, during that time, went from girlfriend to fiance to wife. And after we were married for about a year, there was an opportunity to move to California. And this was, young, married, no kids. Figured if we're going to take an adventure like that, we might as well do it then. Sure. And we did. We lived in California after that for about 7 years. And right towards the end of that period of time, we had our daughter. And that was when we started thinking, we should probably at least be on the same side of the country as the rest of our family. Yeah, there you go. And we found an opportunity to move to Atlanta, and that was about 10 years ago. And I've worked for a few different engineering firms here in Atlanta. And that's actually leading right to your point about the story. So that all that time adds up to about 18, 19 years of working mostly for engineering firms. And like I said earlier, I started, kind of realizing, I'm not doing the engineering and problem solving that I had wanted. That was the reason I got into this. And I started thinking, is there a way that I could, work for myself, start my own company, and really get back to solving problems, right? And helping people with their problems. And one of those avenues, that I looked at was being an expert witness, right? Because there I'm just helping, a lawyer helping a client, solve their problem. They have a technical issue in a case, right? A lawyer, you wouldn't expect him to be an HVAC expert. They have to know very, little about a whole lot of topics, right? And so their job is to find the right expert to help them solve that problem. And so what I did a few months before I started my own company was I was still working in an engineering firm. I kind of just listed myself on a directory for expert witnesses. And, it was just something where I was thinking, if a lawyer calls me and is interested, I'll give this a try and see if I enjoy it. And he reached out to me, end of 2020, around December or so. And we spoke on the phone, and by the end of that phone call, he was like, yes, I want you to be my expert. I can tell you know what you're talking about. And I was like, well, all right, well, let's see where this goes. And, it was a case that was perfect for me. It was a HVAC related case between a homeowner and a home seller, or a home buyer, home seller. And, someone felt that they were kind of sold a bill of goods as it relates to the HVAC of the house. And I was brought on to help the home seller, the defendant, kind of say, well, actually, the HVAC system was just fine. They all have natural wear and tear over the years. You can't expect a 15-year HVAC system to run perfectly on day one. Sure. And that's what I was coming in to provide my expertise and kind of help them through that case. And it in addition to the problem solving, it kind of scratched another itch that I really enjoyed when I was part of the job I did enjoy when I was working as an engineer was I loved teaching the younger engineers. I loved, instilling my knowledge on them and experience, and working with the lawyer felt like that, right? It felt like I was teaching him about HVAC, right? And I was teaching him, here's why this system is okay to run like this. And here's why this is not a deficiency or a fault in the system. And, right. And going through that process, when that was over, it took about 2 or 3 months. That's when I kind of looked at myself in the mirror, talked to my wife, and I was like, I think I can do this. I think I can, start this thing as a actual business. And then, the engineering firm I was with, we kind of had a different of opinion about, the way they wanted to go with the company. And it was kind of a perfect opportunity for me to be like, okay, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to start my own thing. Awesome. Now, did you look out there, Daniel? I'm always curious about things like this because we have a lot of folks that are in your position, they're in corporate or what have you, in the belly of the beast, shall we say, right. And they have an idea. I guess, why did you go start your own firm
versus maybe go to another engineering firm that was doing this kind of work?
Yeah, and that's a great question. That's actually something that went through my mind as part of this process because, my wife and I have had these conversations before where every time I changed firms, that's what I said to her was, this next one, this one seems like the right one for me. And unfortunately I said that 4 or 5 times over my career. And I felt like, maybe it's not the career or the firm that's the problem. It was the job I was doing, right? The firms wanted me to do a job that I didn't want to do, right? And I kept thinking, I'm gonna get to that next engineering firm and I'm gonna find my happy place, right? And I wasn't finding it. And I looked at firms. There are companies that do similar things to what I want to do, but they're either one end or the other, right? There are companies where you can just be a hired expert witness, and all I'm doing is waiting to get a call to be an expert witness, on behalf of a firm. But then there's also the design firms and there's the drawings work. But I wanted to get away from the drawing work and I wanted to do more than just the expert witness. And so far I feel like I've been able to find a niche where I can kind of, like I said at the beginning, the problem solving.
Yeah.
Right.
And I want to talk about the problem solving here in a second, but before we leave the expert witness part, let's talk to attorneys out there who may need your services in that regard. How do they know that they need you? What are the case issues that they might be confronting that would say, hey, I need to bring Daniel in as an expert witness? Right.
And that's great. Thanks, John, because that's something I've answered that exact question a couple of times to some lawyers saying, okay, so why should I be calling you? Right. Is what they're asking me.
Sure.
And the two things that pop out really is construction defect or a mold case. Now, construction defect, that's pretty obvious. Someone's going to say, I got this new house or this new office building and my AC's never been working since the time I moved in, and everyone says the equipment's running and I'm hot every day. That's a pretty easy thing to say. I think I should call an expert in here and see, is this the right, did they put a system that was half as big than it should have been, right? But a mold case, that's something that a lot of people sometimes do, but more often than not, don't think of their AC system. A lot of mold lawyers or lawyers that work in the mold and litigation area associated with it, they will have experts associated with windows and envelope construction and roofing and making sure that water doesn't get into the building. But an AC system itself, when it's cooling, it's drawing the air out when it's properly cooling.
Okay.
So something that we always found in commercial construction, and I'm starting to try to translate that to people on the residential side as well. On commercial side, we always knew that if you oversize your system, right? People are always nervous that, hey, I don't think I have enough cooling. I need to make sure I have enough. I don't want to, a contractor or a property manager doesn't want to get a call from their tenant in the middle of August or like right now, right? I think
right.
Yesterday the heat index was 101, I think.
Yep.
And so it's humid and hot right now, right?
Sure.
This is Georgia summer, typical, right? What they don't want is someone calling and saying I'm hot. So what they might do sometimes is just make the unit too big because they want to make sure you got plenty of cooling.
Right.
But what's that going to do? It's going to mean that the system's going to run for about 10 or 15 minutes. The thermostat on the wall is going to say, hey, I'm cool. It's nice and cool in here. You can shut off now.
Mm-hmm.
And then that unit stays off for another 30, 45 minutes. And then it starts getting warmer, kicks on, but only runs for about 10 minutes and kicks off again. So what are your two problems? One is, the equivalency I always make is think about your car, right? The engine lasts longer, the oil lasts longer when you're driving for a long period of time on the highway, right? When do you have to do quicker repairs? When you're doing city driving, right? Stop, start, stop,
right.
stop.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
So your AC system's not going to last nearly as long as it otherwise would.
Right.
And secondly, you're not drawing the air out, especially in a place like Georgia where you're getting, the doors are opening outside. You're getting hot, humid air brought into these buildings all the time. The only way you're properly going to dry the air out, unless a lot of us, in our basements, we have a dehumidifier, that thing's doing that all the time.
Sure.
But for your overall building system, the only way you're going to really dry that air is you have a properly sized HVAC system. So when I was talking to some old, lawyers that specialize in that, back to your point, that was something. And every time I had that conversation, their eyebrows went up and went, oh, that's a great point. I was like, all right, well, Let's get to work then.
Yeah, that's why you ought to hire Noto Consulting Group.
There you go.
Daniel Noto's with us, folks. He is the owner, founder of Noto Consulting Group. So let's talk about, I guess, the problem resolution side of your business. And you mentioned, I guess, when folks need to have you in, when they're too hot, too cold, and just normal repairs don't cut it. But what happens after that? I mean, somebody calls you and you come in. How does the consultation unfold?
Yeah, that's great, because I'm actually in the process of that, at different stages of that, with a couple of different clients right now. And and first thing is, people will, which is good, they're starting to get associated with, they think of, they have an AC problem, they think of Daniel Noto, and they just call me, right? People call me, first thing they do when they say, it's taking a long time for my office to cool down in the morning. It's 11 o'clock before we're comfortable, or, problems like that, people are complaining. So I say, okay, great. Thank you. First of all, thank you for calling me. But secondly, have you had a technician out yet? Right. And so that's the first thing before I get involved in really looking at the system. Get your, mechanical service technician company, whoever they are, have them come out, make sure that everything's running right. And then if everything is running correctly and everything's fixed, the filters are replaced, compressors working right, everything is running, you're getting cool air, and you're still uncomfortable, then call me back. And then I'll come out there. And what I can do at that point is I can apply the engineering knowledge that I've, kind of accrued over the years, and really determine, is the system, like I said before, is the system the right one for you? Is it too big? Is it too small? Is it set up in the right way around your space? A lot of people also complain. One of the big complaints is not just necessarily that it's too hot or too cold, but you get hot spots and cool spots through an office building,
right?
Especially like an office, big office layout. And a lot of the big problems a lot of the causes of those types of problems is something as simple as your thermostat location. People often want let's say an architect designs a new space, right? Or an interior designer, the HVAC system is supposed to be, felt but not noticed, right? I always joke, it's like the ultimate thankless job, right? No one has ever called me in the history of my career, and will never, going, hey, just want to let you know, everything feels great in my building right now.
That's right. Just want to report in, right?
That phone call will never be made.
Right.
But, and not only is it that, but it's also, the way everything looks, right? And right now we're in a studio, right? And it looks very nice, and it's set up like a typical radio studio, but the thermostat is over there by the door, but you don't even notice it, right? And the idea is to keep it hidden away. They don't want it to be part of the aesthetic of the room, and that's okay, as long as it's not in the wrong place. And a lot of times I will come into a place and I'll see a thermostat with direct sunlight hitting the thermostat.
Oh, wow.
And what does that do, right? A thermostat getting direct sunlight, the thermostat's going to think, it's really hot in here. It's really hot. And it's always going to think it's hot. So it's always going to run, and people are going to be freezing all the time. And then you have the exact opposite. You put the thermostat underneath the cold air coming down, and the thermostat's going to think it's always fine. Or it's going to kick on for 5 minutes. And as soon as that 50, 60 degree air comes out of that vent, the thermostat's going to say, wow, it's cold in here. Okay, we're good. And the rest of the office is going to be wondering why they're sweltering. And it's because the AC is not running, because the AC thinks everything's fine. So those are the types of things, locating a thermostat is I call it low hanging fruit. I mean, that's something that I would walk into a space and immediately, that would probably be one of the first things I would look at. If someone was saying, everything's running fine, but we're still uncomfortable, I'd say, okay, let's go walk the space. Let me look for the thermostats. Let me look where the grills are located in the ceiling, especially a lot of these typical office spaces where you have just a tile ceiling. Moving the things above the ceiling is, we could do it on a ladder. I probably wouldn't do it. I'd want somebody to come in as a professional, but it's that easy that you can move the supply and the return around, in the ceiling to make it more uniform. And, so that's what it is. It's trying to help them realize that, it's not, you're not necessarily every time reinventing the wheel to solve the problem. Some of them just need, but they need someone like me anyway to provide that, right? Because like I said, I'm filling a need where the technician's going to leave saying, here's your status report. Your AC system is running fine. And they're not going to come back for 6 months.
Right.
And the contractor is going to say, hey, I installed it correct. Look at the drawings. Everything is fine. I did my job. Here's my bill. I did what I was supposed to do. But like I said, there's this gap of who's going to say, okay, everything is, there are 8 thermostats. Yes. But are they in the right place? Who's responsible for that? And that's kind of where I would, fit in the middle.
Yeah. And your example of the thermostat is really a good one, at least for me, because, that really doesn't have anything to do with the unit itself. Again, back to the technician, right? I mean, the technician is going to look at what's on the roof or out around the side of the house.
Exactly.
And that's all they have responsibility for. And that's their knowledge.
Yeah. And that's the expensive piece of equipment, right? Like
sure.
that outdoor unit that everyone has outside their house, right? Or on the office, or sometimes is on top of an office building. Mm-hmm. That's the loud unit. That's the expensive piece of equipment, right? Yeah. The indoor unit in your house is pretty much a fan and nothing else, right? That if that thing's not working, yes, you're not getting airflow, but it's an easy fix. The outdoor unit, that's the expensive fix. So, right. That's where the technician is spending his time making sure it's working. And, they'll go to the thermostat. It's funny because you see them in the house. They'll go to the thermostat real quick to put it on cooling to test the system, but they're not saying, is this the right place for this? There's sunlight coming through that big window right onto your thermostat, but
yeah,
nobody's thinking like that's why your house is always cold.
Sure. Yeah. And that's not their skill set. So you wouldn't expect them necessarily to pick up on that. But, so are HVAC systems companies, are they good referral sources for you? Does it come back around that way as well or not?
Yeah. I've spoken with them. It can be the main people. It can be in a sense that yes, if a technician gets called to a property and everything's working right, and I could be a person that they would then refer to the homeowner to, for example, right? The homeowner might say, "I'm still not comfortable," and the technician's going to go, "But everything's running right. I don't know what to tell you anymore." Then they can say, "Well, why don't you call Daniel Noto, have him come in, look at the system, and and what I can do is I would look at the system and I would make put together a little report for them that I could have recommendations about and do it in a lowest to highest impact type thing, right?
Right.
You want to put some curtains on these windows so the sun isn't hitting your thermostat, right? Mm-hmm. Something, and it's not HVAC related, right? But it's a solution to an HVAC problem,
right?
So yeah, those are possible contacts. But really, what I tell people is that when people say who's a potential client, right? Who's a potential contact for you, Daniel? Anyone that either lives in, installs, or is affected by HVAC. And yeah, that's pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
right.
And the other, it actually lends me to another point, John, that I was on a networking video call a few weeks ago, and someone made the point of saying, your business seems a bit niche, Daniel. And I was like, well, you know what? It is. It sounds oxymoronic, but it's niche and everywhere. Right. It's yes, it is niche that it's HVAC, but every single building you go into is a potential client for me. Right. Your home, your office, your restaurant, I spent more than half my career actually on the healthcare side. Mm-hmm. And so I've done work with Northside Hospital here in Atlanta, Children's Hospital, big hospital systems out in California, medical office buildings. So every place you go into that has HVAC is a potential client for me to help them solve a problem they're having. It is niche. It's a specific problem. But like I was telling the person, if I was in California having this conversation, if I was still in San Diego where we used to live, I might not say that every building I go into is a client, because San Diego's 72 and sunny, 300 days a year. We open our windows a lot there, right? I mean, there's a lot of natural ventilation in California. There's not a lot of natural ventilation in Georgia.
Well, certainly not in August. That's for sure. Yeah. I don't think there's any doubt about that. So it's, you talk about folks saying you're in a specific niche. That niche is a pretty important one if you've got somebody that can't figure out why their AC is not cooling right.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's suddenly the field opens up dramatically, right?
Well, and that's exactly. And that's to the point I was saying earlier, right? Nobody's ever going to call me saying, "Hey, everything's working fine."
Right.
But man, everyone knows a lot about their AC as soon as it's not working, right? You'd be surprised at how many people learn immediately. I mean, my father's a perfect example, right? He was a lawyer for 25 years. He's in, medical real estate for another 25 years. But as soon as his AC system was not working right up at their cabin in the North Georgia mountains, he learned a lot about HVAC in the span of a couple hours.
There you go. There you go. Now, you talk, Daniel, about how you prepare a report. You talk about the different recommendations that you give to your clients that have a problem that you've identified the solutions for. Do you implement those solutions, or do you let them find the contractors necessary to take care of that, or how does that work?
Right. So step one would be just developing that report,
right,
those recommendations, and then kind of sitting with the homeowner or the building owner or developer or whoever's having property manager, whoever the client is, sitting with them, going over it, making sure they understand what I'm recommending and the different options available to them. At that point, it really depends on the path they want to go. I have contacts on the contracting side, in the service side, on the product side, and that's actually what helps me put those reports together as well. When I'm evaluating a problem with a commercial system, I have very long-term, close industry contacts at all the big, Trane and York and Carrier, the large, and all of the smaller ones too, Mitsubishi and all the different HVAC company, product companies. And, I have them in my speed dial on the phone and, an email, and a lot of the guys I'm close enough to just text them a quick question and I get that information. And then if the homeowner or the client wants to then proceed, I offer that service that, hey, I can help you manage the project going forward. I can be, or I could be your eyes and ears. I was talking with a contractor recently about a project that they're doing in addition to a home. And they wanted to bring me on to just, evaluate the HVAC, the existing HVAC of the home, to help them determine how much more they need for the addition, right?
All right.
And so I had I'd given them a proposal for just that work. And then there was a second kind of additional proposal of, I can be your eyes and ears as the HVAC gets installed. And, they're the contractor running the whole job, but as the HVAC part alone gets installed and they're going to put the ductwork in, have me come out and kind of just oversee the effort for them,
right,
on their behalf, kind of the expert in the field.
Sure. Yeah, that's awesome. Wow. What great work. And I can't imagine at this point, as we record this show in August, that there aren't some folks out there that may be in need of your services, Daniel. So let's talk to them and give them your contact information. How can they be in touch?
Sure. So again, it's Daniel Noto, and the company is Noto Consulting Group. And our website is www.notocg for consulting group.com. So notocg.com. And my email is just as simple as that. It's daniel.noto@notocg.com. Daniel
Noto, folks, with Noto Consulting Group. Daniel, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Hey, folks, just a quick reminder. I've got an engineer that can help you with back office processes in your business that are weighing you down. They may be running too hot or too cold. Sometimes they're running too cold. And I'm talking about if you're up at night working on your books, or maybe you've got administrative tasks that are dragging you down and you really need to be working on clients. I've got a suggestion. It involves calling Essie Escobedo, the chief executive angel over at Office Angels. Essie's been around for 21 years, and she's got a whole team that handles virtual administrative work, bookkeeping, marketing, just a variety of services. You can go to her website, officeangels.us, to find out more. But my suggestion is just to call her, 770-442-9246. Tell her I sent you and explain your problem, and she'll talk it out with you and see what she can do to help. You'll be glad you did, I assure you, because I use her services myself, and I know of what I speak. So, and as we close the show, folks, we love it if you would subscribe on your favorite podcast app. North Fulton Business Radio is the search term. And I would further ask to give us this 5-star review. It's not about me. It's not about Business RadioX. It's about great business leaders like Daniel and the other, 600 plus we've had on this show over the last 5.5 years. You supporting the show supports them because it helps the show to be found and for folks that find the show to potentially use their services. So if you could do that for them, I'd greatly appreciate it. So for my guest, Daniel Noto, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on North Fulton Business Radio.